don't think you have to do anything, but the world is changing around you anyway. And, the question is just how far out of sync you're willing to be. And, you can stick to some old reliable brand or old, have it be as if it's about some patriotic thing, about the country or about a company or about whatever. And meanwhile, I think the kind of meritocratic duocracy, if you will, of the people that are finding the agile ways to evolve solutions and then produce results, they're just going to outperform the old ones, even when the old ones seem to be holding all the cards, even when they are holding a ridiculous amount of power and wealth, and like there's this huge imbalance, because the value creation actually still comes from us as individuals. Whether the authority or money, monetary symbols reside somewhere else, all the value still gets created from the grassroots up, right? From the ground level up. And so our ability to coordinate the creation of that value is what's going to outperform the people holding the cards. Emerging Leader Labs is a place for, it's kind of targeted to 20-somethings. There's no age restriction. We've had a 45-year-old in the program, we've had a 60-year-old applicant, but it's targeted to sort of the 20-somethings that are coming out of college and trying to figure out what the heck they're doing with their lives and want to make a difference in the world. We have people with a high level of commitment and a high level of, I want to say idealism, and yet no real experience, not a lot of resources necessarily, not a lot of connections, not a lot of track record for people to trust in them being able to get anything done. And so Emerging Leader Labs is a place where you can come to start developing that track record, to implement a vision, have training wheels, essentially some support in helping make that happen while operating in a gift economy, meaning you don't pay to be there. There are a lot of social enterprise incubators that you have to pay to be at. You pay either a kind of entrance fee or by giving a big chunk of your company or whatever the thing is. And most of those tend to be essentially business incubators with a slightly different admissions criteria. So their focus is on traditional business plan, revenue model, management team, how to pitch to investors, how to raise the capital that you need, and we're saying let's start at a different point in the process. Let's actually deal with the human equation. What does it take to share a vision that actually inspires and engages people? So being able to share your vision more effectively and start getting people inspired and engaged with it. Now, if you have people inspired and engaged, how can you organize those people to produce outrageous results, to actually get things done? Remember, we're talking about sort of a duocracy. The people who can get things done matter, not the people who necessarily are controlling the investment capital, but the people who can actually produce the results. So we're trying to shortcut you to being able to produce results with a group of people. And then, as a later phase, look at a business model. Because we want this to be open to projects that may never have legs in the commercial economy, right? They may never be money-making projects. There may be no profit model for them. And yet, they may still be producing a valuable impact. And if there's a community of people willing to say, yeah, I'll share a spare room in my house with people working on that kind of project, or we've got some donated workspace and they have a place to do things, and we have relationships with local farmers, and we've got them food and fed and housed and set up with a workspace. Potentially a project could keep operating with that kind of underwriting from community that would never be able to be really much of a revenue positive project. So some of these projects may stay in the kind of gift economy or social economy, and some may move on to interfacing with the commercial economy. And so that's a very different thing than most business incubators. And we're really focused on the social intelligence. How do you make teams that are really surprisingly effective? And it seems that that's left out a lot in the business model realm, right? The way we talk about management feels to me so outdated, that it's dehumanizing. It's not something that calls forth inspiration and engagement generally. It's something that, is about forcing an outcome, trying to get a result. And we're starting it with kind of a different DNA to the organizations that start in this context. We also want to have you learn to have your team, your organization operate in a high functioning culture. So the culture camp is essentially our intake process where we have a group of people, say 15 to 20 people, and we have to somehow out of this random group of people produce an amazing magical group that produces surprising results. And so it's experiential. So we actually are doing that ourselves, and then we talk about what we just did that made that happen. So we have a whole bunch of weird things we've invented. Things like game shifting boards, which allow groups to self-facilitate without having there have to be a stuck facilitator role. There's facilitator markers, like a facilitator hat, or a timekeeper Flava Flav, necklace around the neck, or things like that. And you can move those markers. Somebody else can take over facilitation, or you may go into a mode that's not facilitated. But you have all the social dynamics made explicit on a game board, and you can change up the group dynamics, because that's one of the problems with groups, is that they often get stuck into particular patterns and dynamics where everybody's trying to please the boss or manager, or placate this person who's going to always find problems, or whatever the thing is. And so being able to actually have a tool that allows the group to embody polymorphism, to change their forms, is part of the training that you undergo in emerging leader labs. I'm going to give one from 3 different domains. So three things briefly. One is about agile process, and that's like learn about some of the principles of agile and how to adapt more quickly. Being able to adapt quickly, being able to see what change is happening and respond to it. There's a lot of examples that I could give, but I would just actually say, if you can't adapt, you die. So start off with that. From the social intelligence space, I would actually say the one thing that I would say is listen more, figure out how to hear the wisdom of people that you're not currently hearing it from, because they typically have some. And so figure out how to include their voices at the right time in the project, or at the right time in the process. Not saying you want all voices all the time, but I would focus on upgrading listening. And if you want your social dynamics to work better, you want your teams to work better together. And the other domain was about currencies, and it's actually about finding some of the unique value that you have to offer, whether that's your company, your product, your department, you as an individual in your job, and figure out how to make that visible. Figure out where that unique value registers, where it actually has impact, and how to make that visible on a reliable basis. And that's the first step toward creating a currency, if you will, because the way that I'm trying to upgrade people's understanding of it is like current see, the ability to see a current flow. So you need to have a reliable system, symbol system, to make those types of things visible in a shared context. And there's been an explosion of those kinds of things, like think about food. Remember when food was just food, not like cage-free, grass-fed, local, organic, free range, hormone-free, like all those types of things are about making some part of value in the production chain visible to the end user. Those are types of currencies to help people see a current that isn't obvious anymore once it's done, right? So, and yet people's values resonate with those things. So there's all kinds of ways that you can make some of the value visible that you have to provide. You asked, is this a little change, or a big one? And I'm saying that the territory, the actual underlying territory is changing in significant ways. Our capacities are shifting in significant ways. But I'm also saying we have to update our maps. We have to be able to see those changes better. We have to be able to be more resonant with what's actually happening rather than... Wow.